Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how you can set your button styles on your Squarespace website. If you haven't already got a copy of my Squarespace website checklist, I'll leave a link in the description box below. You can grab a copy for free, and if you're building a website on Squarespace, you can follow along with all the steps. So I'm going to customize the button styles in my Squarespace website today. I've set up a section to show you that there are 3 button styles in Squarespace. You have a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary. And I've set up the blocks here. I've also set up a primary, secondary, and tertiary button on this side as well, but you can see that the size is very different. The ones over here on the left look a lot larger than the ones over on the right, and that's because of the design settings for the particular button. So that's the first thing I'm going to show you. If you hover over the button and click on it and click on the pencil icon and click over here on the design tab, you can see I've got 2 options here. I can set the button to fill or to fit. Now the buttons here over on the left are all set to fill, which means that they are going to fill the size of the content block. And you can see how big the content block is by looking at the blue outline around the button. And all of these on the left are set to fill, but the buttons over here on the right, if we click on the pencil icon for those, are set to fit. And that means that they are set to fit around the word or the words that I've written within the button. The other thing with fit buttons is that you can actually align them within the content block. So remember, the content block is outlined in blue. So currently this primary button is aligned to the center, but I can align it to the left or I can align it to the right. Now, because these fill buttons over here on the left take up the whole size of the content block, if I make this content block bigger, you can see that the whole button increases in size, and this is all a button, even though it's this big. And the same would happen with the secondary. I can even stretch it over this way, and this whole block is a button, and it's absolutely huge. So depending on the kind of design style that you're going for, you can adjust the sizing or you can make it fit. It's completely up to you depending on what you're going for. Now you can see the buttons all look very different from each other. My primary button is filled with a coral colour. My secondary button doesn't have a fill, but it's got an outline. It's outlined in coral. And my tertiary button is just underlined in coral. So they have 3 very different styles, 3 very different feels. And we can customize how these styles appear by going into site styles. So you can click on the paintbrush icon in the top right-hand corner and scroll down to buttons over here. So if you click the arrow, this is now our buttons panel. And the very top bit, if you hover over it, it gives you an animated preview of your current button styles, which is pretty cool. So you can just see at a glance what you're working with. The next option is button packs. So if we click into here, these are preset button packs that Squarespace have made, and the button styles that they've chosen within the packs all will work cohesively together, but they'll all be slightly different to each other. So I currently have this button pack selected, but for example, if I were to select this one, which has rounded corners instead of the right angled corners, again, I've got 3 different buttons, but they all kind of have this rounded corner shape, so they all go together. This one is more of a pill shape button. Again, I've got 1 filled, 1 outlined, and 1 that's completely blank, but they all kind of match together. So there's some really great options in here. This is another option. So if you didn't want to go in and kind of manually set your buttons individually, you could just come in here and choose a button pack, and you would be pretty confident that the buttons would work cohesively together in your design. But if you did want to go in and set your button styles individually, you have the option to do that. So you can see underneath, I've got the option to go into primary buttons, secondary buttons, or tertiary buttons. And if we click on primary, you can actually access your secondary and tertiary buttons through here as well. So let's go back to primary. Now the top bit within the primary button panel that you get is a preview of what your primary button looks like. It's worth noting here that your primary button style is pulled into all sorts of different sections in your Squarespace website. So if you're using an auto layout section, a list section, even the button in your header navigation will default to a primary button. You can go in and change those things, but it's just good to be aware that things do default to a primary button. So the style that you select for your primary button is really, really important. So currently I've got the style which is filled in. I've got my font here, which is set to Poppins, which matches my paragraph font. I do like to set my button fonts to match my paragraph font, but if I wanted to change that, I could click into fonts, click into the font name, and say I wanted a completely different font here, I could find the font I wanted, and you can see immediately it's updated over here. Now I don't want that. I do like it to match my paragraph font, so I'm going to keep it as it is. Also within the fonts section, within the buttons, you can change the style. So you might want to make it italic, or you can change the weight. So this is the thickness of the font. So I currently have it set to 400, but if I really wanted it to stand out, I could increase the weight and make it more bold. I can also increase the size. So I can use the slider here and you can see the text is getting bigger and bigger. And I can also adjust the spacing of the letters as well. So you can see that the letters are spreading out over here on my website on the left, or I could leave that as it is. And then text transform, you can either capitalize or you can make it lowercase or none. I hit the caps lock button when I was typing in primary, secondary and tertiary, so that's why it's all appearing as capitals there. The other thing you can do is change the shape of the button. So currently mine is set to a square shape, but I can go in and change the corners so they're rounded. I can change it to a pill shape, oval. I can make it just an underline. There's lots of different things I can do here, but I'm going to keep it as the square. I also have the option to change it to no fill, so it will appear a little bit more like the secondary one. So if I click over here where it says no fill, you can see that the fill has disappeared. There is no outline, and that's because we have a slider here that we can select the thickness of the outline that we want. So if I wanted it to appear like the secondary one with no fill, but with a thicker outline, so it's just slightly different, I can do that. So I've got two, again, cohesive buttons here, but they are slightly different to each other. But I'm going to keep mine as filled because I like the look of that. The other option we've got here is for padding. Currently this is set to small padding. You can make the padding medium. You can make the padding large. This will primarily apply to any buttons that are set to fit. If they're set to fill, they will just fill out the content block, but you can see they are getting smaller, shorter rather, and taller as I'm adjusting them between small, medium and large. You also have the option, if you click on the three dots, to go in and adjust just the top and bottom padding. So you can make your buttons really tall, or you can adjust the left and right padding so you can make them really wide. And you can see here I'm adjusting the left and right, but just up to a certain point, only this fit button is increasing in size, and that's because this fill button is just filling out the content block, so it's already pretty wide. But I'm going to pop that back to 3 where it was. So that's how you can go in and adjust the style and the font of your buttons. And you can do the same for secondary and tertiary if you wanted to. Now let's look at how you can change the colours of your buttons. So to do that, we need to head back into Site Styles. And this time we need to head into the colours panel. So we can do that by clicking on the arrow next to colours. And this will bring up our colour palette and all of our preset colour themes. If you haven't already watched the video where I explain how to update your colour palette and what the colour themes actually mean, I'll link it in the description box below, so you can go ahead and watch that so you have a really good understanding of what the colour themes are. But you can see in this section here, we are using the lightest one theme, and I want to edit the colour of the buttons in this particular section. So I'm going to head into the lightest one theme by clicking on the pencil icon here, and this will bring up the color of so many different things within your website. You can change any color of anything here, but we want to navigate down to where it says buttons. So here we are at buttons. We can see here we've got the option to change the color for the primary button background or the primary button text, or the secondary button background or text, and the tertiary button background or text. So if I wanted to change the color of any aspect of the buttons, I can do that by just clicking on this circular icon that's next to the element that I want to change. So for example, if I wanted to change the primary button background, I could click on the coral circle here, and it will bring up my color palette of the core 5 colors, which I can select one of these if I wanted to. So say I wanted navy, you can see that the colors have updated immediately to navy, but I've also got the option to select a custom color if I wanted to. So say for example I wanted them to be bright pink, I could navigate over here to the pink, and there we are. Or if I wanted green, I can select green. I can make them whichever color I wanted to. I do like to stay within my color palette because I think that makes for a more cohesive website. But if you did have a color within your branding colors that you wanted to pull in, then this is a good opportunity that you could do that using the buttons. But let's pop that back to coral because I liked how that looked. So you can do that, and you can also change the primary button text. So say I wanted the text to be black, I could do that. I think actually the white text was a bit more readable, so I'm going to pop it back to white, and you can go in and customize the colors that way. So that's great. I'm happy with how my buttons currently look. So I'm going to come out of site styles now, and I'm going to show you how you can actually add a button to a section. To add a button to your section, you just need to click on the add block button up here in the top left hand corner, and that will bring up all different types of blocks that you can add in, and you just click on button. Now your button will come up and it will be default set to primary, and if we click on the pencil icon it will also be set to fill as a default, but at any point you have the option to change that to a fit. You can change the alignment of it, you can change it to a secondary button, and you can see that way that you can very quickly change the look and feel of your section just with the button, just by changing the button style. If you wanted to change the words within the button, you just need to click on where it says content. So I'll show you that again. If you click on the button, click on the pencil icon, and just make sure that you're on this content tab. Currently it says learn more, but you might want it to say get in touch. So you can do that, and then you can just attach a link so you know that when somebody clicks on the button, they're going to where you want them to go. So I've set it to get in touch, which means I want them to contact me. So I'm going to attach a link to it. Let's just move my face out the way so you can see. Attach a link, and once I've clicked on that, it's brought up the different pages I've got on my website, and I want it to link to my contact page. So I'm going to say, yep, contact me here. And I can click out of that, and you can see that the link is now set. So that's how you can use buttons on your website. So that's it for setting your button styles in Squarespace. If you found this video helpful, please remember to give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any other Squarespace tutorials. And I'll leave a link to my Squarespace website checklist in the description box below, and you can grab a copy for free. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you all the best with your website.